I'm ready, Sanna.
Okay, could you please take your seats? Yeah, I don't think we got any new members. We actually might lose couple ones. But let's go on this group.
Okay, hello again. Now our topic has changed. It is about introduction to the case method. So first let's just briefly touch on some administrative issues. Sanna, is it so that all of them have been divided into and assigned to teams now?
Yes, we have I think 16 teams.
1-6.
Yes.
Okay. So you all know which teams you belong to. And the first case is on American Well, and that is due for upload on next Wednesday. And we will have our seminar about that the following Wednesday. So October 22nd is when your write-up is due, and then October 29th is when we will discuss it live. So now I would like to ask, how many of you have had experience with doing Harvard business cases before? Could you just raise your hand if you have done this kind of exercise before? How many do we have as a count, Sanna?
I would say about half, 25 if I counted correctly.
Okay, so about half of you have had experience and half of you have not. That's okay. Even for those who have had the experience of doing these cases before, I would urge you to pay attention, because my requirements as an instructor may be a little bit different than what you have been doing in the past. So there may be some differences that you need to be familiar with. I will now go to sharing my screen with you and go over the note which is in the syllabus as a basis for our discussion here. So please bear with me while I share my screen. So can we see this PDF, Sanna?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so there you have it. On the 29th we have our discussion, but you will submit it on the 22nd. And here there is a detailed note. Then we have two more cases. One is on LinkedIn and one is on HubSpot. So you have to keep track of those dates. And I'm going to go to the note. Here it is. So the first point, I'll make some points and then give you a chance to ask questions um, a case story. It's about a company which may be real or it may be disguised. Okay? It turns out that all the three cases that you have in this course are all real companies. But sometimes it is not uncommon to find a case assignment where the case writers did not have permission to use the name of the original company, so they change the names and you can't recognize it at all. And it is a story because it is based on facts, but it is in fact stylized. So not everything in the case is exactly accurate. It's not a newspaper article or a research paper. Okay? It's a pedagogical tool to help train managers. So it contains a lot of facts and background information and so on. Usually it contains also a protagonist. The protagonist is the key decision maker in the case. And you have to try to identify who that protagonist is. Okay? Because one of the first steps in case analysis is to define the problem. And the problem has to be defined from the perspective of the protagonist. So, if you don't identify the protagonist properly, your problem definition could be off the mark. So, it's very important to identify the protagonist. Usually, it's not difficult. It is the person in the case about which most is written. So, how many column inches are devoted to a particular employee? That's the protagonist. It's like the main actor in a movie or in a novel. And then you have to do a role play. Your role specifically is to be a consultant or a staff member on the team of the protagonist. And you're writing this memo for her. Okay? So you're not doing any general analysis of the whole company, or you're not doing a general analysis for any department. You're doing this for the protagonist. It has to be useful to him or her. The protagonist has asked you for advice. So that is the specific role that you're playing. So, in terms of the preparation, you have to read the case several times and then you have to discuss it amongst yourselves. And when you discuss it amongst yourselves, you have a few things to rely on. There's the data in the case, right? There's your knowledge of marketing and business in general, and then there is your experience. You might have some work experience, right? So you have to pay most attention to the data in the case. That is what we know. Whether you agree with it or not is up to you, but it is not necessary to go outside the case and find new data. Okay? For my purpose, I'm very happy if you restrict yourself to the data in the case. In fact, I discourage going to outside data because it can bias you in certain ways. In your memo, you have to make some recommendations, and sometimes there is a tendency during preparation to find out what the company did later and then say, oh, I recommend that. But that is a very poor approach in my opinion, because what the company did later is may or may not be the correct approach, right? So the case data is self-contained. It has enough for you to make decisions and recommendations, and you're not expected to go to any other sources. Of course, if you decide to go to any other sources, that is your call, and you must reference those in your memo. Do not use any material from outside the case that is not referenced, because it could be considered plagiarism. So the second thing is your data, your knowledge of marketing and business in general, and certainly you have to resort to that. Any theory that we discussed about high-tech marketing, different types of uncertainty, network effects, whatever those concepts are that you've learned, you can certainly bring those into your analysis and recommendations, but it should not be more than the data in the case. Your first priority is the data in the case, the second is your knowledge of theory, and the third is your own experiences. You might have worked in certain environments in Finland or in Russia or some other place. Experience is a two-edged sword. Either it can help you or it can hurt you. So when you're discussing amongst yourselves, do bring up your work experiences and try to influence each other. But keep an open mind to other people's opinions, because that's the only way you will learn. Just because you did things in a certain way in your work and in your company doesn't mean it's the best for the situation of the case. The case is set at a particular time in the past. So all your analysis and recommendations have to be done at that time when the case ends. And so now your deliverable, your assignment is a 3-page report, and the role you're playing is you're a staff member or consultant advising the protagonist. Do not forget this. I still keep getting memos of people who don't understand what this assignment is about. Okay? So you need to understand that this is the role that you're playing. Anything that is not relevant to the protagonist should not be in the memo. And because there's a space limit of 3 pages, do not repeat case data or background that is unnecessary. You can get straight into problem definition, analysis, and actionable recommendations. You don't need to do a nice introduction or a background. All that is unnecessary. As far as I'm concerned, I'm the reader of the report, and I know the case facts. You might have to only bring in the case facts that are related to your analysis, but don't just give an introduction to make the memo look pretty. And similarly, recommendations, when we say actionable, it means that they have to take into account the short term and the long term, the constraints of budget and time that the organization faces, not just general hypothetical recommendations. So that is what you will submit on the 22nd, and later when we do the seminar, we will meet live like this through Skype, and I will just raise some questions. It will be different from the lecture. In the lecture, I start by asking you what topics you want to discuss. Here, I will have some prepared questions on the case, and I will throw them open and ask anybody to respond to it. So, when we are in the class, assume that you are interacting with the protagonist, who is me. And so, I will try to bring up questions that will test you on your analysis and recommendations, and then try to generate some consensus and give you some closure at the end. Remember, there are no right or wrong answers in terms of the case analysis and recommendations. It is, can you convince all the others in the marketing team that that is the best approach or the best way to go? You're trying to get buy-in from your team members as well as me as the instructor. So it has to be a persuasive memo. And then after this I give you the assessment guide. It's out of 16 points. You are given points for structure of the presentation and your writing in English, your skill in writing, creativity, analysis and feasibility. So you will get that feedback within a couple of weeks of turning in the memo. So those are my opening remarks. Now I would like to throw it open to any clarifications that you might like, and so I will go back to Skype here and stop sharing the screen. Now I hope you can see me back on the video. Please, let's spend some time answering your questions on the assignment.
Any questions? Those of you who did already Harvard business cases, did you do it in them in a similar manner? How many of you did? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Any questions for those to whom this method is a bit more novel? Is it all clear? I don't think we will get any questions. Surprising.
Okay, I have one more tip or guideline. I have done hundreds of these, I've read hundreds of these memos over the past many years, and I find that there are two kinds of student approaches when there are so many memos over the course of the semester, in this case 3. One tactical approach, and this all has to do with workload management or time management. One approach is that you decide in your team who will do which case. So let's say there's 3 members in the team, then you could say, okay, X does the first one, Y does the second one, and Z does the third one. And it's a delegation method. And it turns out that the memo is written entirely by one person. The other approach, which is my favorite approach, and I recommend that to you, is that every case must be discussed by all the team members before the memo is written. And that can only help you do better. Because if you delegate and only one person does the memo, you're not using the resources of the team. And you're not likely to write the best memo unless everybody gets a chance to voice their opinions and give their perspectives. So I would strongly discourage allocation of this assignment to individual members of the team. That's just my suggestion.
I think it's a good one, because you also, what you do is that you will lose the learning effect, because we offer you the chance to learn while you are doing, as you get feedback before you need to submit your next one. So you can actually learn from your first case. But if you distribute the workload, then no learning is actually happening.
So this is your last chance to ask anything live. After that, if you have other questions, you can always email me, and I think they have my email address, sanjit.sengupta@gmail.com.
One of the tips from the past also that consider if you can kind of assign a project manager for your team. So for those cases where you don't agree about the course of action or the problem definition, so that you have, for each case it can be a different person, but you have one person who has the final call.
But don't be afraid to debate and discuss, because that's the way marketing works in practice. Is nobody knows the right answer before the launch. You have to persuade each other, get some consensus, and then get buy-in and implement. So that's the similar methodology we try to follow here.
I just have a quick question. This might be a secret one, but do we need to have references in marked in the paper? Can we just write our analysis?
That's a good question. There are no stupid questions in my book, as Sanna mentioned at the beginning. So if you're citing from the case directly, there is no need to make a reference, because I'm very familiar with the case material. If you're bringing anything from the outside, you've looked at a website or you've looked at some articles and you want to bring those in, then please do make a footnote.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So about format, we've said only 3 pages, but if you want more detail, I like it to be single spaced in 12-point font with 1-inch margins. Okay, so that wasn't in the guideline, but I'm just giving you that additional information, as it makes it easy for me to read. Single space, 12-point font, and some 1-inch margins all around.
So for the length, 3 pages is quite a long for a memo, right? Or does it also include the appendix?
Does it include what?
Appendix and all the charts and everything.
No, 3 pages of commentary, and appendixes would be extra. So remember the section that would, the problem definition is rather brief, but analysis means analysis of alternatives, and it's up to you how many alternatives you choose. A minimum is 2, but there could be more alternatives. Some alternatives are suggested directly in the case, but there could be other alternatives that you might suggest, which would be creative. So the analysis means you have to say, you have to document the strengths and weaknesses or pros and cons of each alternative. And then in the recommendations, you can also be fairly detailed. Think about what would be useful to the protagonist. What does he or she need to implement right away? So you can go beyond the case in making your recommendations. So I think you would find that 3 pages is not too much at all.
Do you want us to open up the theories that we use, or can we assume that you know the theories?
If it's theories from this course or marketing in general, then you can assume I know them. Just refer to them by their common terms like product life cycle and whatever terminology is well accepted. And if it's something from another discipline, don't assume I know it. Even if it's something from finance or accounting, I may not know. So you might want to bring in a footnote for that.
Any other questions? Okay, I think that's all.
Okay, I look forward to getting your memos next week, and then we don't meet live next week, but we meet on Wednesday, October 29th. So thank you all for a good session, and good luck with your next assignment.
Thank you so much.
Bye.